Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond.
The show where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I'm Amari.
I'm Charisma. Welcome.
Yeah. Charisma, what's up?
How are you, AJ?
So check this out. I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I answer that. I wanted to say to you something that I think is very important for us.
Okay. Us as
black people.
As a people.
Right. And that is to say that okay, here you go. You ready? You ready?
Yes.
A log may spend 10 years in a river, but it will never be a crocodile. African proverb. It's one of my favorites, right? Because it really speaks to the fact that we are an African people despite our environment, right? Despite being sequestered and kidnapped and all of that sort of stuff. And I say that because one of the things that's always been important to an African cultural identity is intergenerational transmission of knowledge, wisdom, culture, right? Self-understanding, what other people would call legacy. This is a long-winded way of getting to this. One of the great tragedies of our experience has been we've been cut off from previous generations.
Very true.
A lot of times when we get into conversations about purpose and meaning, we're lost because we don't have anything to look to, or we don't immediately see things to look to, right?
Yes.
Today's show, we're talking about that legacy, looking into the practices of our family to point us in the direction of what that purpose would be. Right?
And for me, that's been very helpful. You know, I come from a family of musicians and creatives, right? So certain things, you know, like you move through life and certain things happen and you make decisions on how you're going to move forward, you know, based on what's happening in your environment. But ultimately, I do truly believe that some things in us are innate, you know, some things are in us. And so to be able to be in line with something that your family has done for generations is a beautiful thing.
Of course
so I'm looking forward to talking more about that today. Our guest, Sierra Georgia, comes from a long line of business owners in her family. And so we're going to talk a lot about legacy, kind of what her journey has been through finding her own business, the ups and downs of all of that, and just talking about bringing it all full circle. Because you want to represent for your family, right?
I mean, what else is there? What does Dame Dash say? I do it for my last name, not my first.
I didn't know Dame Dash said that.
Yeah, he's deep. You gotta listen to him.
Occasionally, yeah. But we're going to take a little bit of a break. But when we're coming back, we'll be back with Sierra Georgia and more on 28 Days and Beyond. Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. We are now joined by Sierra Georgia.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
So before you joined us, Amari and I were talking about legacy and really the transference of knowledge, wisdom, and what all of that entails. I know a lot about your family's history because it's my family's history. But for the folks out there, kind of give us some background on.
Well, I grew up in a family business. I grew up in a moving and storage business. My grandparents started it in the 50s out of Philly. And eventually they upgraded and moved everything into New Jersey, bought a bunch of property, built their own warehouses, and we did trucking for my whole life. We also had a club, the only black-owned property on the Atlantic City waterfront for a few years, a lot of my life as well, the Golden Key Yacht Club. And so I grew up and everything was family owned and operated. So I grew up, my first job was getting off of the school bus, sitting at my little mini desk and answering the phone and like doing homework. You know, father and son, please hold. That's all I would do like all day. When I first learned how to read, my job was opening mail, alphabetizing it to be put in the file cabinets, because this was like in the era of typewriters, whiteout, and fax machines. And so growing up like with my family, like my cousins and my sisters and my aunts and my uncles and everybody, we all worked together. We were all doing the same thing. So it's like we were always together. So like my sisters were really, and my cousins were like my best friends. I didn't, you know, so everything we did together. And so that taught me a lot. So growing up, you know, as soon as my older cousin got her license, I was probably like 12. But because she had a license, we were officially a crew. Right. So we'd like, we were the people that when you opened up the door and we were here to pack your house before the truck came, you saw all these kids, people would be so like crazy. But long story short, I had a great childhood, a lot of adventures. And so when I went to college, I went to Howard University. Washington, Washington, D.C. And when I got to Howard, I studied international business. And I always had a lot of passions for creating things, but business was I always looked at it as like, oh, I just like to do that. It's just like me. It's like it's a hobby. Whether it was making clothes or baking or whatever it was, there was just a very big separation in my mind. So I studied business, and by the time I graduated, my family business was closing. Everybody was getting old or sick, and it was just kind of really dwindling down. To my senior year, I had to get a job, and I ended up getting an internship at the Federal Aviation Administration. Got hired full time, and that was my first job. When I first started, I was like, Dad, I'm not gonna know anything like aviation.
Yeah, right.
You know, I was like, they'll teach you everything you need to know. And so, and I did like my job because I enjoyed working in an office because I was used to that already. So I had a great job, but I always had that bug for freedom, that bug for entrepreneur. I always, you know, my very first business was when I was in college. And everybody was stealing boxes out of the dumpster and behind building. I'm like, that's disgusting. Like, I called my dad, like, Dad, bring me all the boxes you can.
So you can,
you know, and so my very first business, a lot of people don't realize, it was with my dad. It was called Simple Student Storage. And I used to sell boxes out of my dorm room. And I really did that, one, because I saw how people were stealing boxes, but I also did it because I was appalled at how much college costs. Like, I had very low financial aid assistance, and like my dad, like we did jobs and we'd work, and I'd work with him for however long it took to make the money to go take it to Howard to pay the bill. And like, just so to work and do that kind of exchange, it was crazy to me. It was expensive. And so I basically wanted to do something on campus. I wanted to generate, I wanted to meet them at least halfway. And so I would sell boxes. This first year, I probably made like $5,000. People call me in the middle of the night.
Okay,
I could have done like a lot with $5,000.
No, they would call me. People were calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I need like 10 boxes. You'd think it was crazy. And this was in the days before Facebook, Google is what it is now. Real talk, I put I printed out a bunch of flyers, put them in every dorm, and Yahoo was the only website builder at the time. And I built a little site that had my little schedule on what day I was going to be at what dorm. It was like having a little box truck,
actual business.
And I would show up, and people would buy from me or call my phone, and I'd deliver it to them.
Well, we definitely want to hear more about how you went from selling boxes out of your dorm to now being the owner of Gelat'oh. But we have to take a break, so we'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
We're back on 28 Days and Beyond with Sierra, Georgia. So before the break, you were talking about, peddling boxes. Of course, it was more than just peddling boxes, right? You were traveling around the different dorms and all of that. You've come a long way since then. Where are you now?
Well, now I'm way far from boxes outside of my dorm room. Now I am a manufacturer of artisan gelato and sorbet.
Fancy.
And it's a theme here.
So after I graduated, I worked for the government for about 6 years, and I went outside one day for lunch, and I worked really hard. I was an executive assistant at the FAA, and I enjoyed my job. I loved the people. And I went outside for lunch one day, and the line was wrapped around the corner, DC's first cupcake truck. It was like, must try. I stood in line 45 minutes. I bought every cupcake they had, and I was not impressed. At the time, I was doing catering cupcakes. Like, my family would place orders.
I got cupcakes from you, I remember.
The biggest order I did was my grandmother's 80th birthday party. It was like 13 dozen cupcakes. And I just remember looking at the table, I was like, man, that's impressive. It looks really professional. And so somebody said, like, Sierra, no, you really have to sell these. So then when I saw that truck outside that day, I said, I'm on the wrong side of this window. It was just a guy in a truck with a cupcake thing strapped to the wall, and he was selling them for $4. And I was like, wow. And so that day I started bartending at night, probably a couple nights a week. I got all the money I needed, like I stacked up all the money, bought the truck, bought the equipment. I was ready to hit the road, and there was 5 cupcake trucks on the road. It was my original concept was called Cupcake Buggy, and I was super into it. And the only thing I didn't have was a wrap for the truck, and I didn't have a commercial facility to work out of yet. So I found, but then it was like so hot, and all these cupcake trucks, and I'm like, let me do something cold with the cupcakes to be different. There was ice cream, there's no gelato. So I went everywhere, every gelato place. Nobody would really return my calls or emails. So eventually I found a chef on Google that wanted to get into retail. And so I sold him all my concepts. They let me work out of their facility, and they agreed to wrap the truck in exchange for me helping them build their brand. So over about 3 years, from 2013 till about 2016, my sister and my sister worked with me since she's graduated high school. And my cousins, like my whole family works with me, honestly, in some capacity. But basically it was time to expand, and I wanted to expand into Philly. I had some opportunities here and wanted to kind of build upon all the property that my family had and really bring it into the right now. I wasn't willing to open a new moving business, but I was willing to get good enough at gelato so that I could use our resources to distribute my gelato.
And you actually went to Italy to study.
I did, and so yes, I did. When I had the opportunity to expand to Philly, they offered me a licensing deal. It was too expensive. They wouldn't negotiate with me. They were standing firm on it, so I had to walk away. At the time, I really didn't know what I was going to do. But I ended up finding a gelato university, the best one, Carpigiani Gelato University in Bologna, Italy. I went there. I stayed there for about 5 weeks. Just soaked up the culture, and when I was there, I felt like I had discovered this world that I didn't even know existed. Like gelato, it's a whole culture over there, and I knew. And it was just a whole nother level of lifestyle for food people that I was just into, and I wanted to bring that back to my community.
And what has it been like you as a Black woman in the gelato space?
Well, that's a great question too, because when I first, I was in Bologna for maybe, like I said, about 5 weeks, and I was one of 3 women that finished the program, like out of 30, but I was definitely the only brown person there. And so I was used to going to all of these international settings where I'm with the best of the best, and there's no one that looks like me. Being a Black woman at that, like there's not even many women it's a very male dominated field in general. But there are some nice ladies that I did meet. But yeah, so it was just, that lack of representation was a driving force of me wanting to just put my best foot forward, soak up everything I could so that I could make it my own.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time. But before you leave us, we need to tell the people out there where they can find gelato, where they can buy gelato, and where they can taste it, because I have, and it's delicious. So.
No worries. So everything can you can find me online, eatgelato.com. That's gelato with the H at the end, EATGLATOH, Gelat'oh. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Eat Gelato, that's everything. You can currently order online, get it shipped to your house. I have an Airbnb tasting experience right out of the city of Philly where you can book a nice experience. And you could also find us at Pizza Brain in Fishtown. They sell all of my products, 2311 Frankfurt Avenue.
Wow.
And we have a truck. You can always book the truck. Find the truck outside or, follow us on Instagram to see where it's at. But you can also, everything, I'm really proud of the fact everything can be done through our website. You can contact us, you can place an order, you can book us for catering, everything online.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
I appreciate it.
We'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
And we're back with more 28 Days and Beyond.
Yes, we are.
Charisma.
Amari.
Yeah?
That was awesome.
I've never had gelato before.
How?
I don't eat dairy, but guess what? Gelat'oh offers vegan options.
Yes, they do.
Sugar-free options.
Yes, cold-pressed options.
Cold-pressed fruit
sorbet.
Juice. Come on, sorbet.
Options.
There are plenty of options, but one of the things that I think, speaking of options, that I think was really powerful about that story was, she always felt like she had options.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess that is, at the top of the show, we're talking about legacies. Entrepreneurship is finding opportunities, right? So she's looking at kids stealing boxes from, from dumpsters.
Any opportunity.
That's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it really seems like even in terms of pursuing her interest, right, in gelato, that first relationship had to come to an end because they wanted something she wasn't willing to give.
Right.
There are always options. So that's a beautiful thing.
And also just the hustle, it was
of
like,
course.
a lot of business and being smart about business is seeing what people need. You know, even her telling the story about how initially she started with cupcakes, but then she saw that the market was saturated and said, okay, what else can I do? It's also the ability to be able to pivot, to say, okay, this is the direction I was going to go, but maybe I should shift a little bit and try something else. And it's been really successful for her, so that's been amazing.
That's what's up.
As well as carrying on the family legacy.
I mean, there's that aspect of it as well. I am interested in, you know, putting the pedal to the metal. The proof is in the Gelat'oh, if you will. I want to check it out for myself.
Yes.
So she gave us a few different places where we could check it out.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna get on that as soon as possible. You've had it though.
Absolutely. Like
are you a
bunch.
biased you know, taste tester?
I mean, probably because she's my
You got a
cousin.
sophisticated
But at the
palate,
same
you see
time,
what
I was
I'm
going to
saying?
say I'm a foodie, so.
Yeah.
Because she's my cousin and I love her and I want her business to succeed, if it was trash, I'd be like, yo, you should improve on this.
Oh, I see. So
but
you
I don't have to do any of that. She did the work. She went to Italy, she studied, she knows
word.
what she's doing. It's delicious. Also, I did a holiday tasting that she had where they paired it with different desserts. I was in heaven.
Come on now.
You know how I feel about food.
Yeah.
It's a love relationship with me and food, so.
This has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond.
Where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.
Peace.